Okay, so it's just after 1, so I think we'll get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Dunlop, and I'm a registered dietitian at the Niagara North Family Health Team. I'm really happy to be taking part in the wellness series. If you missed any of the previous speakers' presentations, they are recorded and are on YouTube. So you can find them through the Niagara North Family Health Team website, or you can directly find them on YouTube if you just search Niagara North Family Health Team. So we've had some amazing speakers. I've been checking out all our wonderful topics. So if you've missed anyone, you can check those out still. So our topic today is mindful eating. And I want to start by saying I'm really not an expert by any means on this topic. So I'm not a certified mindfulness coach, but as a dietitian, I'm really excited about the possibilities that mindfulness has in terms of our eating and how it can help us heal our relationship with food. So during these pandemic times, emotional eating has been a struggle for most of us. It's normal at times to overeat and to seek comfort in food. So this is completely normal. In times of high stress, there's actually a biological component to wanting to eat more. I was listening to a podcast by my favorite mindfulness teacher, Tara Brock, and she made a really interesting comment that struck me. She said, in a season of overeating that we think is causing us harm, it may actually be that we are moving from restrictive eating to more intuitive eating. So, I think we may have been listening to our bodies and responding. So, I think we need to think about this a little bit. But I think where mindful eating can really, be extremely helpful is in that more consistent emotional eating and overeating that we can sometimes do, or that learned response to eat when we feel bad. So we kind of know where that cycle goes, right? We have that stressor where we feel bad, we eat to feel better, we get that temporary release, those feel good feelings, and then back to that guilt cycle. So that's kind of what we want to try to reduce. So let's talk a little bit about what mindfulness is. So John Kabat-Zinn is kind of a guru in mindfulness. He's a researcher, a meditation teacher, and he's known for his interest in mindfulness training for the treatment of chronic health concerns. And he explains mindfulness this way. He says that mindfulness means paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So we're going to take a look at all of these kind of components of mindfulness. But I think the last part about non-judgmentally is where we really get hung up when we're talking about food. We often judge ourselves or we criticize ourselves when we are eating. If you can just take a moment to think about, what kind of dialogue goes on for you when you're eating. So perhaps you're thinking negatively about your body. Perhaps there's a lot of shoulds and shouldn'ts going on. You maybe have food rules. We often see, eat this, not that, kind of that good food, bad food. I must finish everything on my plate. So all of these kind of rules and things that start kind of that judgment. And when we're judging ourselves, we're really not being mindful. So I love this quote. It says, mindful eating replaces self-criticism with self-nurturing. It replaces shame with respect for your own inner wisdom. So if we can just take a little look at this quote. So that first part, it replaces shame with respect for your own inner wisdom. Really, when we're thinking about that, it's because it's removing that judgment, right? We're removing that judgment and we're recognizing that food is nourishment, right? So eating really is a form of self-care and it is meant to be nurturing, sorry. So the second part, it replaces shame with respect for your own inner wisdom. So mindful eating may help us to trust or respect that we know what, when, how much we need to eat. So we can practice these skills if we are aware and paying attention. So that brings me to the next quote. So mindful eating is really eating with intention while paying attention. So intention means having a plan or with purpose, right? Not just automatically to a response or a trigger. So, and when we're paying attention, not only to the actual experience of the food, your senses, where the food came from who prepared it, but also your own body cues. So are you enjoying the food? Are you beginning to feel satisfied? So these are kind of all the questions we could be asking ourselves and thinking about when we're practicing mindful eating. So how can we begin to bring more intention and attention to our eating? So this is the mindful eating cycle that Michelle May came up with, and she's got a lot of great resources. She's got a great website. Am I Hungry is her website. So are you able to go back and answer these questions about your last meal? So we're going to go in further detail about some of these parts of this mindful eating cycle. So the why, right? So why are we eating? So, there's kind of a couple reasons. So physical hunger, of course, that's why we want to be eating, to satisfy physical hunger, but often it's emotional hunger, right? And as well as a lot of eating triggers that we have. So, it's normal to sometimes eat when we're not hungry, right? That's completely normal. But, if it's a frequent occurrence, then it could be more so emotional hunger. So also, if you've been in that dieting world, sometimes it's actually hard to know, when what actual physical hunger feels like. Maybe you've been ignoring that physical hunger. So it can sometimes actually be a tricky thing to know. There's a good saying I came across, and it says, if you are eating when you are not hungry or not eating when you are hungry, something is eating you. So it's really important that we get kind of to the root cause of what's going on. So how do we know physical hunger from emotional hunger? So I have this little picture here. So, with emotional hunger, it tends to come on really quickly. So whereas physical hunger kind of builds gradually, you start to feel, okay, I'm getting a little hungry, the growling, the stomach. If you let it go too long, maybe you have a headache, maybe you get hangry, right? So, but it comes on gradually, whereas emotional hunger, it's usually, you want something right away. And you usually, you know what you want to eat. So it tends to be kind of a specific food item versus, when you're physically hungry, you might be open to several different options as far as food goes. So after last night's game, there's a lot of emotional reasons for why we eat. So this is a Toronto Maple Leafs fan this morning finishing the chocolate cake in the fridge after last night's game. So we really need to become aware of the emotional reasons that we're eating, and it's really helpful to actually be able to identify what emotion it is. So recognizing our emotions and be able to label them correctly. So actually know. So, what is she feeling right now? Is it frustration, disappointment, sadness? So we really want to find out, what is it that we're actually feeling? And it is helpful also to recognize, to go from saying, instead of saying, I am sad, I am feeling sad. And that really helps us to, not over-identify with an emotion, to recognize that our thoughts are just our thoughts and our emotions change from moment to moment. And we need to step back and, recognize, what is the emotion telling us? So labeling kind of your emotions and recognizing your emotions is helpful. So sometimes people will use acronyms like, am I physically hungry, or do I have the BLAS? So the BLAS would be bored, lonely, angry, or anxious, happy, sad. And sometimes if people are, they're triggered, they feel a food craving coming on, sometimes they'll use HALT and to ask themselves, are they hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? And I find that tired tends to be a big one in practice. I find that a lot of times emotional eating happens when we're feeling tired. So again, another reason why we eat when we're not hungry can be food triggers, right? Because we're surrounded by so many in the environment. So, you may have just eaten lunch, but you walk into this bakery and, oh, the bread smells so good that all of a sudden we feel like, oh, it'd be easy to have a slice of bread right now, even though we just ate, because it just smells delicious. We're driving home and we see all of these fast food signs. The billboard lately that's been catching my eye is the McDonald's. It says, you crave, we deliver, right? We have right now, we have Skip the Dishes, Uber Eats, right? And I think with the pandemic, if we're working from home, and our kitchen counter kind of looks like this one in the picture, right? Again, another easy trigger. So we can kind of control our environment a little bit, right? What does your desk have candies on it? So all of those things can be triggers to eat, as well as things that are habits. So, he's got the TV remote. So watching TV is paired with eating a snack, right? So a lot of times the triggers or just habits. So what can we do if we're eating in response to non-hunger cues? So like we just talked about, recognizing the emotion or the trigger. So often they say name it to tame it, right? So even just recognizing that you're having that emotion can help, kind of make us feel better, and allow it to be there. So they often say what we resist persists. So sometimes, we feel that emotion and right away we go, oh, we don't want to feel this emotion, right? So, we jump to that learned response of eating. So instead of just letting it sit there, so allow it to be there without feeling like we have to do something about it. And then investigate, what do I need right now? Right? Am I actually physically hungry? So this is a part where we get curious, right? What do I need, right? What you really just want to do is create a pause to make space to make a choice, right? So if we have that pause, we can make a different choice and we can feel more in control, right? And then we want to nurture ourselves. So you may still want to eat, even though you're not hungry, and that's okay, right? But you want to do it mindfully, which we'll talk about. So, or you may decide that you can nurture yourself in another way. So sometimes having a list somewhere close by, so things that you can do to offer yourself some self-care besides eating, especially when you're not physically hungry. So sometimes also they use the acronym STOP to manage food cravings. So they say stop. So the S stands for stop what you're doing, take a moment to pay attention, take a breath. So this helps to calm your mind and body, and then observe, again, non-judgmentally, your thoughts, emotions, your body sensations. Again, am I hungry? Do I have the blahs? And where am I on the hunger fullness scale, which is a great tool. And we're going to talk about that soon. And then proceed with awareness and kindness. So you're proceeding again with awareness. You're making the choice. It's not happening automatically. It's not a reactive behavior where you're making the choice. And that's really the key. So I want to kind of just bring in a personal example and in using this mindfulness or that mindful eating cycle. So there was a time when my kids were a bit younger, and after putting them to bed, I would automatically walk down the stairs and walk right into the kitchen cupboard. I would grab kind of the first kind of snacky type thing I would see, and I would eat it standing up right inside of the cupboard. So, and then afterwards I would say to myself, okay, why did I just do that? What is going on? So if we're using this mindful cycle, so, the when was right after I put the kids to bed. The what was really anything. The how was standing up in the cupboard, and how much was just kind of until I felt a little bit better. So I had to go back to the why. So why was I doing this? So what was the emotion behind it? So I think some of it was a bit of a reward, right? So when your kids are little, I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but right. So you you're waiting for this moment, right? When you have that, just that 1 hour in the evening to kind of just relax, right? After a really long day. Maybe that little bit of frustration of an emotion there because, after, finding the right blanket and I need a glass of water, read one more story, right? So I think it was, that little bit of frustration and that reward. So that was really the why. So what really helped me was naming the emotion. So figuring it out, what was going on. And it also helped me to tell myself that this is hard, right? Other parents also struggle with this time of night. It's a hard time of night. We're tired and we're just really looking forward to that time to ourselves, right? So offering myself some self-compassion and that common humanity that that often parents go through this. So just being able to say it out loud, this is tough. This is what the emotion is. And then offering some gratitude. So, being so, recognizing that I'm grateful for my children and I'm happy that I can, that they're healthy and that I can read to them and read stories to them at night. And then also mindfulness while I was putting them to bed. So focusing on the actual smell of my child's hair, the feel of being cuddled up beside them, and just being in the moment, that it won't last forever, right? And just really, I was able to start to being more mindful, help me realize that I actually really, really, truly enjoy that time reading to them. And that bedtime is actually a really good time. So kind of all of those things really helped me to kind of distinguish those feelings. But this was actually a habit for me, this cycle. So I actually also had to change. When I came down the stairs, I didn't walk into the kitchen. I walked the other way. And it happened to be spring when I was kind of figuring this all out. So I would go outside and actually water the flowers, water the garden. And so that was a distraction method that I was using. But I just think that this, this kind of personal example just shows you kind of where we need to go. And, it was our wonderful social workers that helped me realize, practice the gratitude, practice that mindfulness and name that emotion. So they really can be really, really helpful for that. So just kind of another example of how this can look, and you can think about in your own life, where is this happening for you? So let's look at the how much part. So, babies are, they have an innate ability to know when they're hungry and when they're full, right? So when you see the picture of the wanting more, their mouth is wide open, and when they've had enough, they turn their heads, they'll hit the spoon, they know when they've had enough and they'll let us know. So it's not really until, our society and culture, diet culture and judgments and everything that get in the way, and you start to lose touch with that ability to listen to your own internal cues. So we need to kind of take a message back from babies and their innate ability. So here's the hunger fullness scale that I talked a little bit about last time. So it may be helpful to use this scale to determine where you are before you eat, halfway through the meal, and then after the meal. So you can ask yourself, do you eat differently when you are, when you're ravenous versus just hungry? So what is your speed? How do you feel if you eat until you're too full versus neutral or satisfied? So really we're aiming kind of for that 5 here, that satisfied. Sometimes it becomes such a habit to eat until we're, full or stuffed, and really figuring out where am I, how do I feel when I'm satisfied? And really noticing too, as you're eating, how is that food tasting? So, depending on where you are in this scale. And of course it's normal to, Thanksgiving, we tend to eat till we're stuffed, right? And that's normal. It's normal to do that from time to time. But if we're doing that all the time, we may want to look at this hunger fullness scale, and that awareness piece is really making sure you're checking in with yourself while you're eating. So if you check in with the scale kind of before you eat, sometimes that can tell you a little bit about your dietary pattern too. So maybe supper, you need a snack between lunch and supper so that you're not so hungry going into a meal, and you can eat slower and more mindfully. So so this can be a really helpful tool. So, and now we can talk about how do you eat, right? So I love these two pictures, so this little boy looks like he's just loving these. It looks kind of like empire cookies, which I absolutely love. Looks like that's what he's eating. And this other little boy, right? Completely distracted with the screen in front of him. And unfortunately, this has become such a common thing. They just did another study looking at, Ontario kids and eating habits even through the pandemic, and the amount of screen time. So even if families are, they're eating together more, they're still not necessarily eating at the table. So there's a lot of screens and distractions. So I think that this is a big one. So how do you actually eat? Lots of times people say, oh, I love food, but we're not actually eating in a way that kind of shows that we love that food, right? So we need to give it its respect. So, how else do we eat distracted, right? So we, when we're driving, like we say, in front of screens, watching TV, while we're, scrolling. So, it's definitely a common thing right now. And how do we, often we get to, you get to the bottom of a bag of chips and you kind of go, wait a minute, who ate those, right? Because we're not paying attention. So I'm really trying to eat more mindfully. So how can we do that? So I think it's really important to take those 3 deep breaths before eating. So this can really help us to kind of get us, again, relax us and get us into that mode. And it's also really good for our digestion. So I work with a lot of patients that have irritable bowel syndrome. And, one of the first recommendations I give them is, take a couple deep breaths before we eat so that you can, help the digestion to occur. So take those 3 deep breaths, practice gratitude, right? So, just being, thankful for the food and thinking a little bit about where the food came from, thinking about who prepared it, maybe who you're sharing the food with. So, that can also bring us into the present moment, when we're distracted and kind of running around. So that can help us to bring us into the moment. And then using all of our senses, right? So when we use all our senses, those feel-good hormones, those come up to their brain and tell us that we're enjoying this, that we're having a good meal. So we want that to happen. So, the smells, the taste, the texture, all of those things. So really trying to use those. And then slowing down. So the slowing down can be a real challenge for people, so sometimes people, again, it's kind of a habit in eating really quickly. So, everybody's probably heard before, put your fork down between bites, or, you can set a timer and try to, increase the time that you eat by 1 minute kind of, each week. But really trying to slow down and check in with yourself. So then that's, where am I at on that hunger fullness scale? And, is food still enjoyable? So you're staying in that moment, right? So is this bite as enjoyable as the last bite? So sometimes we realize that, especially with desserts and things like that, often, 4 bites is enough. Just, we get our taste buds, we have, satiety as far as, our taste buds get tired of what we're eating. So really checking in, am I still enjoying this? Did I enjoy this bite as much as the last? And then that letting go of judgments, right? So that's a big one. That's a big, big, big one. And, so we got to keep working on that. So I found this plate when I was just looking at mindful eating things online, and it's actually, mindful eating tableware. You can actually purchase this plate. So I just thought it was a great kind of visual, and maybe we all need the plate to remind ourselves of all of these things. So slow down, be grateful, taste the pleasure, be present, guilt-free, right? And to feel nourished. So I loved this. So there's lots of ways to practice mindfulness exercises. So many of you probably have heard of the raisin exercise. So if you go to YouTube, you can find the raisin exercise there. Our family health team, Niagara North Family Health Team, on our website, we also have a raisin exercise there. If you go to patient resources, and then to our mental health page, that's where you'll find our raisin exercise. One bite at a time. If you Google that, need to go forward again here. One bite at a time. Jan Chosen Bays, she does a fantastic video about slowing down when we eat. So that's a really great one to check out. Insight Timer is a free app, and I think you can pay for a more advanced version, but you can just get a free version, and there's lots and lots on Insight Timer. There's actually a really great kids mindful eating exercise on there. Calm.com, headspace.com. So those are all ways you can practice mindful eating. For further information, also the Center for Mindful Eating, the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion. So all of these things you can look into. Niagara North Family Health Team, we also have a mindful eating 6-week program, and for patients of our practice, as well as a Living Life to the Fullest program, which is our mindful eating program. It's myself, a dietitian, and our social worker, and we run that program together. So we use CBT and ACT therapy, as well as lots of talk about self-care and mindful eating. And then also the Niagara North Family Health Team, the Living Life to the Fullest program, is run by our social workers. And it's an excellent program as well. So thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Emily and let you, if anybody, I didn't say this at the beginning of the presentation, so I'll give you a little time now because I did finish a little bit early. If you have any questions, please write them in. I'll give it a couple minutes, and then Emily can let me know that there's questions, and I can see if I can answer them.
Fantastic. Thank you, Melissa. So we have Josephine who asks, how can we sign up for the 6-week program?
Okay, yeah. So right now, if you are a patient of Niagara North Family Health Team, you can be put on the wait list. We introduced the program just this past year virtually. So right now it's still running virtually. And when we put it out to our patients, we had about 113 people register. So we're just kind of working our way through the wait list. So probably the best way would be to call Laura at Niagara North Family Health Team, and she can add you to our list. You can also go on Niagara North Family Health Team website under patient programs and find out more information about it there.
Oh, perfect. Josephine said she did add her name to the wait list. So excellent. Someone will contact you once we get through it. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Eve would like to know the name of the One Bite at a Time person because she didn't catch it.
Okay, it's Jan Chosen Bays, Jan Chozen Bays, Bays.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. That's a good question. Karen was just trying to clarify, but she wasn't quite on there. Excellent. Any other questions? Oh, Karen said she did do the mindful eating program. It was an excellent course. Fantastic. Glad you enjoyed it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Oh, Karen would like to know about the low carb movement, like as websites such as the dietdoctor.com. She said it was very helpful for her.
Oh, interesting. I actually have not heard of dietdoctor.com. So I don't know. I haven't heard of that. So I can't really respond at this time because I have not heard of that.
Oh, that's good. Jasmine says thank you. Well, thank you for joining us, Jasmine.
for being here.
Jane would like to know if the info sheets are available to print.
The presentation, I'm guessing, maybe she wants printed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how we could do that. Any ideas, Emily?
I think if you send it to me, I would be able to email it over to her.
Perfect.
Yeah. Jane, I can send you a private message right now. Karen would like to know if you have any tips for vegans.
Tips for vegans. Okay. Yeah, kind of outside of this presentation scope, I would say that it's always a great idea to talk to a registered dietitian, just to make sure that you're covering all your bases. We're always happy to talk to people that are kind of following that vegan lifestyle. So really happy to have a conversation and just, make sure that all the nutrients are being met. So I would say book an appointment with one of the dietitians here at Niagara North Family Health Team. We would be happy to sit with you and chat about that.
Perfect. Excellent. Josephine would also like the printable version, so I took her email down and I'll reach out to her later.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Do we have any other questions or comments? Oh, Colleen said she didn't know about the YouTube Niagara North site, so she's going to head over there.
Awesome. Yeah. We have quite a few different videos, and I'll just put a plug in too for our website. If you go to patient resources on the Niagara North Family Health Team website, so patient resources, and then if you go to nutrition, we have a lot of great information on our nutrition page there, as well as some of the YouTube videos that I've made for eating well during pandemic times. So you'll find them there, family meal times, those kinds of things.
Josephine would like to know if you're familiar with Noom.
I am a little bit. I know a little bit about Noom. So it's not, unfortunately, the way that they present it is that it is kind of a mindful eating approach and intuitive eating, but it really isn't. It really doesn't fully focus on kind of that non-diet approach, or that health at every size approach, which I think is really important when we look at kind of that mindfulness and reducing judgment. So anytime we're on a diet and we're, we have those shouldn'ts and those restrictions and those rules, then, that caloric goal, then I really think it takes away from a mindfulness practice. So they really are trying to kind of push it as, and stop dieting, go on Noom, but I don't feel that it's 100% really what we're supporting as dietitians and what we support.
That's some great input, and thank you for your question. Josephine says, can we book an online appointment with the dietitian as long as we're a patient of Niagara North?
So yeah, so you don't need, you can completely self-referral, no problem at all. You would just call the receptionist, Laura. And again, I believe on our website, you can find the information about our, the receptionist, Laura, and how to book appointment with the dietitian. You would just call her and she would set it up. So no referral is necessary. You could just let her know kind of, how we can help you. And we'll go from there.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for joining us. She says it's very helpful. Thank you. Josephine says, oh, sorry, I already read that one. So sorry. Colleen says she missed the Can't Sleep Zoom. So she's going to review the video online.
Yeah.
Thank you for this presentation. She feels very supported.
Great. Excellent. Yeah, the other videos are fantastic and really kind of go along with some of what I've been talking about. So Len did a gratitude talk, and there's been so many great presentations. So I really encourage people to check them out.
Yes, there's some really good ones on there. Let's see. Jasmine says she's a diet addict and your tips are very helpful.
Yay, good. Excellent. Yeah.
Perfect. Karen says the sleeping program was fabulous. And John says, excellent presentation.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
So, thank you for joining us, guys. It was fantastic. Eve says, thank you so much. These webinars have been great. Enjoyed today and feel the support from Niagara North Family Health Team.
Wonderful.
Awesome. And Jane says you can try Noom for free, but she didn't find it that great.
Okay, good to know. Excellent. Thank you for that.
Always nice to hear some feedback from people that have actually tried it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Excellent. Brenda says, thank you so much. She truly appreciated this.
Good.
And fantastic. Do we have any other questions or comments? Oh, Josephine, thank you so much for this presentation. And thank you for joining us. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope you can practice, your mindful eating, kind of your next meal today. So
yes, Eagle says thank you, and thank you. Glad you could attend. Fantastic. Perfect. Any other questions today? On behalf of Niagara North Family Health Team, I want to thank Melissa for joining us and for giving us this wonderful presentation. I've learned a lot, and I hope everybody that got to join us and attend was able to take something out of it. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. If we didn't have attendees, we wouldn't be able to put on these webinars. So truly, thank you for joining us today. Perfect. On that note, I hope everybody has a wonderful day and is able to enjoy the sunshine. Thanks.
take care.